Hello, my fellow comic book collectors. It's Alan, the Comic Collector Geek, and Happy New Year. This is actually going to be the first list for the year where I look at the hottest Golden Age comics for the week. And these are all sales that happened this year. So this is the hottest Golden Age comics for the whole entire year. I don't know, I'm not sure how to explain it, but so let's get into it. It's a pretty cool list. Number 10 on the list is 4-Color Comics number 596. This is from Dell from 1954. It's a Robert Susur cover, and it's the first appearance of Turok. This is an interesting one because it's a painted cover, and it's, major key for people that like Turok. Turok in the 90s is associated with mass-produced comic that probably had millions produced and very low value. But this is not that. This is the original Turok, and it's a classic book. This was a 2.0 that sold, and it sold for $225. Now, it's the only sale in this grade. But this was a bit of a steal because there was a 1.8 that sold for $300 in August of 2024. So this is actually about $100 cheaper than what the lower grade 1.8 had sold for. So a bit of a steal. Somebody got a good deal on that one. Yeah, you never know. So this, you can see this was much rarer than the 90s version of Turok because there's only 252 of these on the census, and 244 of them are Universal Blue Labels. Number 9 on the list is Super Magic Comics number 1. This is from Street and Smith. It's from 1941. It's a Charles Sultan cover, and it's the first appearance of Rex King. Now, this title later becomes Super Magician Comics, but in this issue with Rex King, it's actually an interesting character. His name was Rex King, and he was also known as Black Fury, and he had a sort of a sidekick called Kato, which was a Black Panther. So because of his name, he didn't really get very far. So because he was also later known as Rex King the Adventurer, but it's just weird that the Kato thing, kind of Green Hornet, ripoff, and then the Black Fury just didn't go well with so many other characters that are named similar. So just the character didn't go very far. I just thought it was interesting that this is his first appearance of one of these characters that really didn't get very far. But this is a key book. It's was a 3.5 that sold, and it sold for $290. That's up, actually. The previous record for this book was set back in December of 2017 for $262. So it's up a little bit from that previous record. But yeah. There's only 23 of these on the census, and 21 of them are Universal Blue Labels. Number 8 on the list is Weird Tales of the Future, number 4. This is from Aragon, 1952. It's a Basil Wolverton and Ed Robbins cover. Now, there's a lot of Basil Wolverton collectors, and this is, whenever he does the covers, people generally gravitate to them, and they can command big money as a result. Weird Tales from the Future, of the Future, I should say, was a title where Basil Wolverton did many of the covers. So it's a kind of a very collected series. This one's kind of an odd one. If you look at the cover, very odd. There's these weird bat vampire creature. I'm not sure what they are. They're just weird bat-like characters that are flying across the thing with men attached to them. It just looks really odd. I just think it looks really odd. Okay, you look at it, see what you think. Tell me what you think in the comments below. I think it's odd. Okay, but that's Basil Wolverton. He always does really odd things. This was a 3.5 that sold, and it sold for $499.95. I'll round that to $500. So it's you'll see 500 on the screen, but it's $499.95. Okay, that is actually down. The previous record for this book was set back in February of 2022 for $528. So it's slightly down from its previous high. But actually, the last sale for this book was in January of 2024, so just a year ago, for $343. So it's up from the prior sale, but down from its ultimate record. So, it's kind of recovering, I guess. There are 88 of those on the census, and 87 of them are Universal Blue Labels. Number 7 on the list is Startling Terror Tales number 5. This is from Star Publications, 1954. It is a L.B. Cole cover. All Star Publications are L.B. Cole covers. It is his publication, and he would put his own covers on them, on the comics, and reprint the interiors. So it was sort of his own publishing house where he would do reprints with his own unique covers. This is a really interesting one because it's this weird fire demon, or fire and demon creature, ugly demon cover. It's kind of a cool one. This was a 1.8 that sold, and it sold for $579.47. It's the only sale in this grade, and it's really one that's you can look at other sales like slightly higher grades sell for about $800. This one is kind of in line with what the fair market value is. There's not really that many on the census where you can get a real sense of per point grade, how it impacts the value. But Go Collect puts this as a fair market value of $575 based on the sales of the higher grades. And this is right in line with that. So it's just sold for what it should have. There are 36 of these on the census, and 34 of them are Universal Blue Labels. Number 6 on the list is Menace number 5 from Atlas Comics 1953. It is a Bill Everett cover, and it's the first appearance and origin of Zombie. Now, Zombie is actually a character, not just a monster that's like comes back from the dead. It is that as well, but in this, it's the character is actually Stephen William Garth, who is brought back from the dead as Zombie. Later on, this character is reused in the 70s, in the Bronze Age, to have a horror magazine. This was one of the horror titles that Marvel had. So this was a 1.0 that sold, and it sold for $575. Again, this is the only sale for this book in this grade. The fair market value was set at $350, which seems about right for this book, because a 1.8 just sold in June of 2024 for $533.14. So you would expect this book to be under that value, but actually sold for more. There is price compression, but usually, the 1.0s kind of sell for a bit less, right? You'd expect more like the $300 to $400 range rather than the $500 range. Well, so this one kind of blew past what the 1.8 had sold for. So a very strong sale for this book. There are 79 of these on the census, and 72 of them are Universal Blue Labels. Number 5 on the list is Captain Marvel Adventures number 23. This is from Fawcett, 1943. It's a C.C. Beck cover, and it features the first full cover appearance of Steamboat. There's actually an earlier cover of Steamboat, but it's kind of like a very small thing. This is like him fully on the cover. And Steamboat is one of those characters that is very controversial. There was actually a group of school students from a diverse class that actually protested the character, and as a result, in 1945, they ended the character. Now, Steamboat's actually a very beloved character in a way. He's actually not a bad character. But he did kind of feature a lot of racial stereotypes. So that was the issue with him. So it's one of those ones where it's kind of a mixed history about the character. So this is kind of a key book for that reason, and very desired comic. It was a 5.5 that sold, and it sold for $735. Which is a very strong sale because the previous record for this book was set back in October of 2024 for $633. So it's up $100 from just a sale from a couple months ago. Very strong sale. There are 62 of these on the census, and 57 of them are Universal Blue Labels. So for Captain Marvel Adventures, which was actually a very had massive print runs. It was well printed in the golden age. 62 on the census is actually a very low census count. There was literally millions being produced per print. So that's actually a pretty low census count. Just shows you how rare this book is for the series. So number 4 on the list is Action Comics number 20 from DC Comics 1940. It's a Joe Shuster cover, and it's actually an interesting cover because Joe Shuster is one of the creators of Superman, but he made a big mistake on this cover. And if you look at the Superman on the cover, you'll notice he is missing his S. There is no S on the cover. So it's very interesting that the creator made that kind of major mistake, in my opinion. And it got passed through. Somehow nobody noticed it. Now, this was a 1.0 that sold, and it was a restored 1.0. It was C1, which means amateur restoration, but minor restoration. It had some glue that was used to kind of retouch the spine. This sold for $1,750. Which is actually down. The previous 1.0 restored grade had sold for a record of $1,826 back in just a month ago, like a week ago, really, in December of 2024. And that it's interesting because there was actually a blue label 1.5 that sold in October of 2024 for much less. It sold for $1,400, and that was its record. So this is actually a weird one where the restored book sold for more than the blue labels. I don't know why. I don't know why at all. I actually looked at the 1.5 and I thought, oh, maybe it's messed up. Maybe it's just pure aesthetics that the 1.0 looked presented better than this 1.5 that sold for less. But I looked at it, and actually the 1.5 does present better. It's like, so I don't know why there was, a higher record for the restored 1.0 than the 1.5 blue, which is very odd. So yeah, there are 87 of these on the census, and 58 of them are Universal Blue Labels. Number 3 on the list is Teenage Romance's number 1. From St. John, 1949. This is a classic Matt Baker cover, and it's a very key book because it's the first of the series of Teenage Romances, which was a fairly long-running comic. This was a 6.0 that sold, and it sold for $1,850. This was a massive sale. Normally, this book sells for a lot less. The previous record for this book was set back in November of 2019 for $720. There was actually a 5.0 that just sold in August. No, it's not August. September of 2024 for $565. So for this to sell for $1,800 is actually a pretty massive sale. I would have expected this book to sell for around $900 maybe. But not $1,800. That's just a massive sale, way above what I would have expected. Huge sale. These Matt Baker covers have been still outperforming what my expectations would be, because, you know, I guess Matt Baker's still hot. So there are 30 of these on the census, and 29 of them are Universal Blue Labels. Number 2 on the list is Batman number 23. This is from DC Comics, 1944. It is a Dick Sprang cover, and it's a classic Joker playing chess against Batman cover. And the pieces are actually them as characters, which is interesting. This was a 4.0 that sold, and it sold for $2,199. Now, this book actually was one of those books that had one of the few Golden Age books that really had a huge increase during COVID. For some reason, this was sort of a hot cover during COVID. I'm not sure why, but it was. And it had a massive sale during the COVID spike. So when all the modern books were spiking, well, this book also spiked. And it sold for $2,850 back in January of 2022, sort of at the height of the COVID spike. So it's just a massive sale. Now, this book has since corrected, and the last sale was set back in November of 2024 for $2,199. So it's been it's been basically staying at that price for the last little while. Yeah, kind of interesting. There's 366 of these on the census, and 319 of them are Universal Blue Labels. Number 1 on the list is Batman again, but this is Batman number 2 from DC Comics, 1940. It's a Bob Kane and Jerry Robinson cover, and it's the second appearance of the Joker, second appearance of the Cat, not Catwoman, but the Cat, who later becomes Catwoman, but I'm going to stick to it because I have number 3, and that's where she's actually called Catwoman, so I'm going to stay with that. And there's also an ad in this one for Fair 40, 1940, I should say. Fair 1940 is the first time you get Batman, Superman, and Robin on the cover. So that's kind of a key book. So the ads, some people collect based on the ads. So that's kind of another key to this book. This was a 2.5, another restored book. This was B3, and there was, B means semi-amateur restoration, and 3 means that it's moderate level of restoration. There was a lot done to this book. Tear seals, glue, color restoration, or color touching. So there was a bunch of stuff that happened on this book. This one was originally listed on eBay for just under $9,000, like $8,999. But they took a best offer of $7,700, so $7,700, which is a massive sale. This book, this book doesn't normally sell that high in a restored grade. The previous record for this book was actually set back in August of 2019 for $2,600. So it's up almost 3 times, 2.5 times from that prior record. So that's a massive sale. Even a blue label recently sold for $5,749 in December of 2024. So just recently, a blue label sold for $2,000 less. So this is a massive sale, a really massive sale. There are 258 of these on the census, and 154 of them are Universal Blue Labels. So that was the week. What do you think about these big sales? Some pretty interesting ones. I was really shocked by that Batman. I really didn't expect it to go for that much. What do you think? And what do you think about buying restored books? Would you pay that much for a restored book, or would you prefer the blue label, which I think everyone would? So I'd like to hear your comments below. Thanks again for watching. Bye for now.